Hello, I'm Colin Sullivan.
And I'm Megan Honey.
And this is Almost Live, a weekend show designed to give you the who's who and what's what of Telluride and Mountain Village. On this week's Almost Live, Kathrine Warren is here with her Warren Commission for news on our local music and entertainment scene. Daiva takes us undercover at Between the Covers' upcoming signing series at this year's Telluride Film Festival. And I'll be sitting down with documentary filmmaker and historian Ken Burns to talk about his life, his work, and some upcoming special things for this year's Film Fest.
We're going to be taking a look at a great way to prepare mussels from Patrick O'Gans, our Wine Geek food freak, and then we've got a retro ride flashback from 2015 in the Kodo lip sync featuring some of Telluride's most talented ladies. Now let's head over to Kathrine Warren and the Warren Commission.
And here we are again with Kathrine Warren and her Warren Commission.
Hello, Colin. How's it going?
It's going well, Kathrine. What is going on with the arts and entertainment scene this week?
So there's a little festival happening in town. You may have heard of it. It's called the Telluride Film Festival.
No,
Are you
don't
familiar?
recall it. I am not familiar with that.
One of the biggest weekends of the year for the arts and entertainment scene in town. Of course, the Warren Commission focuses a little bit more on music than film. And so a lot of our venues that would normally have music this weekend are hosting the festival.
And by the time you see this, the festival schedule will have just been released.
Correct.
So you can kind of look in that.
Yep,
We're not going to go through any of that today.
Correct. So if you're in Mountain Village on Friday night, we have a fabulous duo called Freddie and Francine. They're playing in the Heritage Plaza, or Madeline Reflection Plaza.
Yes.
They played at Telluride Bluegrass Festival. They were fabulous, beautiful male-female vocalists. Just a good indie.
Just an indie band.
Band that Telluriders will love, and that's free at 5 o'clock in Mountain Village. And then later on Friday night, we've got Beatrix Kiddo, the DJ, playing at the Liberty, free show. Just go out and dance.
She's come here before, right?
Yeah. She's Lexi Torelli.
Lexi Torelli, yeah, that's right.
So you might be familiar with her.
Beatrix Kiddo, that's
her alter ego.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday night at the Liberty, a British singer-songwriter named Joe Holt will be playing a free show, but donations are appreciated.
Right.
And then, of course, if folks want to check out a little bit of Telluride Film Festival, they may not have a pass. Elks Park turns into a late-night movie venue. At sundown, they'll be playing free movies in Elks Park. The schedule will be online by the time you are viewing the show. And we'll see what goodies they have in store for us at Elks Park this weekend.
And that's it, huh?
Yep.
End of the summer. It's a great time.
Sad.
I know. Thanks for coming, Kathrine.
Thanks for having me, Colin.
All right, let's go to a PSA now on high-altitude medicine with Dr. Peter Hackett.
Awesome. Traveling to high altitude can promise beautiful views and exciting adventures, but it could also give you a dose of mountain sickness. I'm Dr. Peter Hackett, founder and director of the Institute for Altitude Medicine here in Telluride. Mountain sickness results from the low oxygen in the atmosphere at high altitudes, typically above 8,000 feet, like here in Telluride. We see altitude sickness in mountain climbers, hikers, skiers, and people who travel to high altitude, especially those coming from sea level. In most cases, symptoms are mild and very much like a hangover. They include headache, dizziness, some trouble sleeping, fatigue, loss of appetite, nausea or vomiting, rapid heart rate, and shortness of breath with exertion. Severe cases of mountain sickness are rare. Symptoms may include a bluish gray or pale complexion, chest tightness, cough and congestion, mental confusion, and decreased consciousness, inability to walk in a straight line, and shortness of breath at rest. In any case, early diagnosis is critical, as altitude sickness is easier to treat in early stages. Remember, if you are new to high altitude, minimize the intake of alcohol in the first 24 hours. Drink plenty of water, even when you don't feel thirsty. And don't overdo it, especially your first couple of days, while your body is acclimatizing. Mountain sickness goes away in 12 to 24 hours all by itself, but with rest, water, and ibuprofen or Tylenol for a headache, it goes away sooner. More serious cases we treat here at the medical center with oxygen or medications, And almost always we can keep the person here to enjoy their vacation.
Hi, I'm Daiva from Between the Covers Bookstore, Telluride's indie bookshop since 1974, which coincidentally is the year that the Telluride Film Festival started up. So we are, I guess, kind of twins in this town. We have some neat things going on this coming weekend for the film festival. We have our traditional sidewalk signings, which have been going on for almost 10 years now. On Sunday, September 3rd, we have Annette Insdorf. She is the professor of film at Columbia University who moderates the panels in Elks Park, probably for almost all of those 44 years of the festival. She has a new book. She specializes on directors from around the world. This time her new book is Intimations, the Cinema of Wojciech Haas, who is a Polish filmmaker. And then the big deal is Monday, September 4th, Labor Day signings right here on our sidewalk. At noon, we will have filmmaker and historian Ken Burns. His new book, The Vietnam War, An Intimate History, is coming out Tuesday, September 5th, but we've had it released early for his first book signing in the nation. So we will have that on Monday, September 4th. We are doing pre-orders because we will have a limited amount of them. So give us a call if you'd like to pre-order one for Monday's event. He has said that this is some of the best work that he and his team have ever done. The PBS series will start airing September 17th, and I believe it's 10 episodes. The same time, we will have, for the first time on our sidewalk, German screenwriter and director Werner Herzog, who, by the way, it will be his 75th birthday, and his co-signer for this book, Herzog by Ebert, will be Chaz Ebert. She is the widow of Roger Ebert, who graced almost every single festival up until we lost him a few years ago. And she's the president of the Ebert Company. She puts on the Ebert Fest, that I think is going into its 20th year, kind of a very eclectic other film festival. She is bringing a cake for Werner, so we will have a very festive sidewalk on Monday, September 4th. The other thing is that we obviously can't talk about the books that will be displayed starting on Friday, because the programming for Telluride Film Festival, of course, as most of you know, is secret. But this is one of the places people stop in on Friday to start getting the gist of what's going to be happening and who might be coming to town, and speaking about films, but also hang out in cafes and having conversations on Main Street, which is what is so neat about these festivals in Telluride, is the intimate one-on-ones you can have with people that either you admire their work and their passion for what they do. So here's just another opportunity in Telluride. So come on into our creaky kingdom of books, check us out, see what we've got on display, and we'll see you in line.
Thanks a lot, Daiva. That was Under the Cover at Between the Covers, our local bookshop that's right down there on Main Street. Daiva is one of the owners of that bookshop, and she's going to be coming back to you in the future with new releases and different staff picks and things like that. And that obviously was on the signing series at the upcoming Telluride Film Festival. So this is Community Buzz. Let's talk about things that are buzzing. Let's talk. The small thing is the farmers market, right?
Small thing. Well,
so I mean, compared to the other big thing with the festival.
Very true. Yes, still the farmers market. You still get breads, flowers, cakes, cookies. See how I went through all the baked goods there? I don't know what else is there. I just go there
You
to
like
get
flowers?
food.
You like pretty flowers?
I like flowers and bread.
Yeah, actually, it's amazing. And then also like Colonel Chocolates is another. There's a chocolate place there. There's a lemonade stand which this guy has, which is incredible. I know that it's weird that we're just listing things that are at the farmers market, but it is really an incredible farmers market. And these folks are coming back every year, and a lot of the folks actually are local business people as well. So we should talk a little bit about Film Fest.
What's that?
What is that? That's the joke today, right? Yeah, because it is one of the three most important film festivals. It's older than, I think, it might be older than Tribeca or older than Sundance, one of the two. Yeah. So it's one of the oldest ones as well. But it's Tribeca, Sundance, and Telluride. And in the last 10 years or so, the best pictures have come out of Telluride. Do you have any film festival memories that you want to share? Because I have a few.
Let's see. I got to see Meryl Streep one time, and I don't really get crazy over celebrities. Like, the idea of celebrity is kind of a strange thing to me, but I got to see her do this Q&A when she did Suffragette, which is, like, very, very cool. And she did Q&A, and she was very wrapped up in the political scene right then. So her Q&A wasn't really about the movie. It was about what we can do as citizens and as women and to help others in not only our country, but other countries get voters' rights. It was very cool. It's probably one of my favorite Film Fest moments.
Yeah, she's a pretty cool lady.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, she's maybe one of our, best living actors today, and maybe our greatest, specifically.
Definitely not underrated.
No, not underrated at all. And she's I think she's the most decorated actress out there.
Yeah.
But also, again, she's chosen a lot of the work that she's done, which I think is really important. Like you mentioned Suffragette, and that's the thing. The thing about this Film Fest that's really great is that you're really going to be able to see some films that you might not otherwise see, in the mainstream. And then some of them, obviously, you're getting a lot of mainstream films as well. And there's some free programming, and there's some after-fest programming, all those kind of things.
I do like those smaller films, kind of like offshoot films that aren't like the big headliners that you probably won't catch anywhere else. I think that's probably one of the neater parts of Telluride Film Festival.
Yeah, there's a dancer that Sasha and I love, which is, her name is Pina Bausch, and anybody who's in the theater scene of the dance scene knows her. She's one of these. She's a company in Wuppertal, Germany, and she passed away recently. And Wim Wenders was a friend of hers, and the filmmaker Wim Wenders, and she kept asking him for years to make films because she just wanted to collaborate with him and her company. Her company speaks all different languages. They're from all over the world. They work out of Germany and everything like that, but they're from all over. So you can't communicate with anyone, with one language at any time. So they communicate through the language of dance. So Wim Wenders she passes away. He ends up being contacted. He shoots the film, right, of hers, and then it comes to the festival. And again, it's a lesser-known film. But the key to the whole thing is that he couldn't shoot it because he couldn't get the depth on the screen. So he shot the film in 3D. So it's a film that's about
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you can watch the film in normal. But some of the local folks here who sponsored the festival, a local family, actually paid to get it brought here. Again, this wasn't a film that was going to win an Oscar, that was going to anything like first run kind of stuff like big budget anything. It was just this film about this dancer, and he said in his talk back, he goes. The guy asked him, like, how did you get the idea to shoot it in 3D? And he said, I went to Tribeca and I saw Shrek 3.
No way.
so a year before he had seen that, and then he goes, I know how to shoot it, and he called them. And again, the same thing is that he said, I couldn't communicate with anybody, so we just asked them to communicate through dance.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an incredible film.
I need to watch that, yeah.
Yeah, particularly if you ever get to see it in 3D.
In 3D.
But there's all sorts of different films for all sorts of different people. It's an amazing festival. It's a really fun time, and it's been here for a long time. Yeah. Also, you could see people like Bill Murray or like
handing out cupcakes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. At Bill Murray's movie that he did a little while ago, he just showed up in the line because everybody has to queue in these big lines and just handed out cupcakes. So there you
Bill
go.
Murray, good guy. Good guy.
So if you get a chance, support the Telluride Film Festival.
For sure.
And speaking of support, actually, we have to give a thank you to some of our sponsors. Telluride TV is a public access channel that depends on public support, and we want to give thanks to the towns of Telluride and Mountain Village, the Telluride Foundation, and the Telluride Ski and Golf Company.
Thanks so much for thanking our sponsors, Colin. We certainly couldn't do it without them. Now let's head to another episode of Wine Geek Food Freak with Patrick O'Gans. He's going to teach us how to make a really tasty mussels dish.
Hi, I'm Patrick O'Gans, the Wine Geek Food Freak. Today I went to my local market, Clark's Market, found some beautiful blue mussels. A lot of people call them black mussels. No such thing. They're blue mussels. I'm going to take some chopped garlic. I got some beautiful extra virgin olive oil already hot in the pan. I'm going to saute these till they're just a little golden blonde. I'm going to add some Roma tomatoes, a little pinch of salt, toss those up. I'm going to add some crushed red pepper. I'm going to let these tomatoes soften up. I remember the first time I was cooking in Italy, I was in the kitchen and I wanted to say to my superiors how much I knew about the tomatoes, so I decided I'd say, I can't believe the tomatoes from Mexico. And I thought I was going to follow that up with, wow, look how much the Italians have done with the tomatoes since these short 200 years. But all I got at was the tomatoes from Mexico. The whole kitchen stopped. You could hear a pin drop. The next thing you know, the head chef, Antonio Rogers, turns to me and says, Patrick, some people will tell you that the pasta is from China. That's bull crap, man. Don't ever say that in an Italian kitchen. After these soften up a little bit, I'm gonna add a little bit of white wine. A little bit for the Wine Geek Food Freak. And then I'm gonna add the blue mussels. Now we just reduce from here. Now the mussels have started opening up for us. Start collecting those. Now mussels are alive until we put them in here, so if they don't open up, it means they were dead before you got them. Don't eat those. Sometimes you can hit them a little bit, make them give up. All right, I'm gonna take the back side of a slotted spoon, get after it here for just a second. I've had some al dente linguine pasta cooking right back here. I like to add my pasta straight from the water. There's a lot of sodium in there. Helps the pasta adhere to the sauce. I'm gonna toss this pasta with our little sauce. I'm gonna check my salt content. Remember, you can always add salt, but you can't take it away. So always do that at the end. All right, give it another toss here. Turn that off. Now, I'm gonna plate that linguine pasta right here. I'm just gonna stab all those mussels all around the plate. This juice that's left in the bowl, you want some of that. I like to pour that into my little mussels friends here. And then we'll finish that with some parsley. And there we have it. Until next time, remember, all you need is good ingredients, some care, and a minute of your time, and you can eat like me, Patrick Legans, the Wine Geek Food Freak.
And we're here with Ken Burns in studio, documentary filmmaker, historian, Telluride local.
Yeah,
Would you consider yourself a local?
Oh, when I'm here, I feel like I'm home. And
Okay.
it's so interesting that when I learned very quickly that I come here at least a week before the film festival starts to be able to hike and play. I just got down from Judweeby, and the first few days, hundreds of people stop by and just say, welcome home, Ken.
Yeah.
It feels really great.
People, we see you all the time on the street. My wife and I see you all the time on the street. But there's usually like a train behind you of small children.
I have children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
I've got two. I have 4 daughters. 2 are grown, and one is, produced a couple of grandkids, and then I've got 2 little gals too.
Wow.
So it's that, and I've been coming. The first time I came was in 1985 with a film I made on Huey Long, The Turbulent Southern Demagogue. And I got here late at night. I had no idea where I was. I had never been to Colorado, never been in the Rockies.
Was it still dirt?
It was, I ended up in the Sheridan and kind of came out to blazing sunshine and just looked up and thought, this has got to be a backdrop. This can't be real. And fell in love with the place and ended up sort of going back to my family and saying, we have to go here. And in 1990, the festival selected my film on the Civil War to show. So I brought everybody there, and then I have never not come. This is my 28th straight year. And by 91, we were smart enough to come a week in advance to play and to hike and to continue the friendships that have now developed for now decades. And I can't imagine not carving out these 2 weeks every year in my life.
And you're one of the rare filmmakers that's actually made the bridge, because you premiered your National Park series or at Mountain Film, right?
Well, it seemed appropriate to, Mountain Film had asked me to come many, many times. I said, I'm now on the board of the Telluride Film Festival, and it's a cherished responsibility and role that I have. And my friend David Holbrook then said, please show, it seemed important and appropriate to show the national parks during Mountain Film. So it's the only other time I've ever been in Telluride. It's either Labor Day weekend and the week before, or the one time that I was there in May for the Mountain Film.
I worked with Mountain Film for about 6 or 7 years now as a festival host and a tour host and things, and I saw all of those.
Oh my
programs.
goodness!
Yeah, I know. So this is
That's
the thing
quite
that
a commitment.
I know. So this is what I want to ask you, because at that particular festival, you stood up in front there at the intro of the first of your. It was 6 different films.
7, yeah.
7 films, yeah. And each film runs what?
2 hours.
2 hours, yeah. So, and you said, anybody who watches all these films, I will sign a poster for you or do whatever you want.
Jazz, the festival showed the entire jazz, and people had to stay up all night.
Yes.
I mean, this was scheduled at times when human beings were awake.
Yes, that's right.
But the Telluride Film Festival scheduled jazz, and I made a promise that I would give a poster and the DVDs and a book, and apparently 9 or 11 people were crazy enough to like spend, they'd show episode 7 at 2 a.m. and episode 8 at 4 a.m. And then episode 9 at 8 a.m. And then, it's crazy.
So this is what I wanted to preface with that was you have a sense of humor about the length of your films.
Yeah.
And then also, so how is it exactly that you how do you get into a subject? How do you find your next thing? Because there's so much out there that can be, richly described and those kind of things. Now that podcasts are out.
You just have to feel it. It's sort of like how do you, you go to college and, you're maybe how many hundred people and, several dozen are acquaintances and a couple dozen are friends and 5 you'll know for the rest of your life. How does that, we always say chemistry. So I've got lots of ideas in my head, but when something drops down into my heart and my gut, and then you say, I'm going forward with this. And all of my films so far have been in American history. I could be given 1,000 years to live and I'd never run out of topics in American history. And I'm now in my 60s and I am busier than I've ever been. I'm working on more films at once than I ever have before. I've usually been stupid enough to have 2 or 3 films going, and now it's like 5 or 6. and I mean going. These are not back-burner stuff. These are stuff.
Young children, and you have.
Well, my
oldest
my oldest daughter is a co-director with her husband, the filmmaker David McMahon, Sarah Burns, and I work with. I'm very lucky enough to work with lots of other people. So
that's amazing. So this is incredible. It's a family endeavor now.
It is. It feels that way, and the people that I work with are the people that I play with, and that's different. And we live in rural New Hampshire. Most of us. We have an office in New York, but most of the people, upwards of 40, depending on what's going on in New Hampshire, a little tiny village, makes Telluride look like a big city. Yes. Working on these films and sort of hand making them in a way, as much as we're taking advantage of a kind of international resources and the latest digital processes. Nonetheless, it feels like we're shaping them by hand, and there are people who came as interns in 1990 who are now my senior editor 27 years later.
Lucky senior editor.
Well,
I guess that's a lifetime, though, right?
I think you're lucky me.
Lucky you, yeah.
I think it keeps you free of formula. It also rejuvenates with new ideas, and it's good to have that thing. Like I used to do all the interviews and all the films. I don't have to. Lynn Novick, who co-director on several of the films I've worked on, is as good an interviewer as I am, so she can do that.
Yeah.
And then another project, another producing stem on the Roosevelts, I ended up doing almost all the interviews because the co-producer didn't feel as comfortable doing it.
Your films, it's interesting because you've become the premier voice. You've become almost like a documentary laureate, of the U.S. and of history and the way that it sort of unfolds. But your films are often like, to me, often like woodworking. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you're just, you're banging together a bunch of historical events. Like in the Civil War, which I just rewatched because I got a chance to go to Gettysburg for the first time, like just the battlefield. And you go to Gettysburg, the battlefield, you're just driving around and you're looking at big open fields and lands and things like that. When you watch the films, there's all these voices of people within these films, and you follow these lines through. So talk to me about that. Like, how important is it to find that before you begin the narrative of the film?
Well, it's hugely important, and I'm not. It's a kind of a chicken and egg. That's a really great question. You do want to write it, but at the same time, you want it populated by first-person testimony that's going to mitigate a little bit that voice of God, that voice telling you what you should know. And the first-person voices have a bottom-up flavor, so you can be on Little Round Top and have the voice of the main colonel who's rushing down to try to stop the onslaught, and you have the voice of the Alabamian who's coming up the hill trying to take that hill, and it puts you there. And so the other 2 films that I've made on about war on World War II and Vietnam, I've been fortunate enough to have people alive, so you don't have to resort to actors reading, though it's no less effective, but you have the real people who were there telling you what they experienced. And in the case of the Vietnam War, we were able to interview North Vietnamese soldiers and Viet Cong guerrillas and South Vietnamese soldiers, as well as civilians in Saigon and civilians in Hanoi. So it complements the whole variety of people that are the Americans that we do, Marines and Army guys to be sure, but POWs and Gold Star mothers and draft resistors and protesters, and so the whole gambit of the American experience. And then you can create a space in which you can more fully understand it. And it goes back to your question about Gettysburg. It's not just driving through the landscape, but now you've got a sense of what took place there, and that where real lives were involved and engaged, and so too with the more modern wars of World War II and Vietnam.
Your, I mean, you've made so many hours of film, so much out there. What's like one of your most rewatchable, or what's one of the ones that you enjoy the most?
You know, it's funny. You brought up my kids. I'm very lucky. I've worked in public broadcasting all my life. I'm not associated with any one station. I work with. I mean, I'm not hired by anyone. I work with WETA in Washington D.C. and I've been able to release my director's cut. So these are all children that I don't have to make excuses for. That is to say, if you don't like it, it's all my fault. It's not. It's not somebody who didn't let me use this or that other thing. I've had the director's cut, and I feel very fortunate for 40 years that I've been able to sort of ply my trade in this little niche and be able to have a broad conversation with people across the country, and not just, since I don't have a political agenda in the films, I'm trying to speak to everybody. We're calling balls and strikes in the Vietnam film or World War II film. We're not judging things. I mean, these are not morally relative. We hate slavery, we hate tyranny and Nazism and that sort of thing. But I think it's hugely important to try to speak to all of us. There's too much pluribus and not enough unum today, the historian Arthur Schlesinger said, and my work is about unum. And so, you know, there's, I'll get stuck. I'll be surfing the channels one night, late at night, you know, having come back from a trip, and there's a film, and I'll sit and watch the rest of it, or not, you know. And it's not about that particular film. It's just that you learn a little bit about who you were back then and what you were thinking. And sometimes it's refreshing to be reminded of the simplicity of how the narratives were sometimes constructed back then, rather than, I mean, now these are big, huge, complicated, interbraiding and intertwining of dozens and dozens of stories, which is hugely complicated and very rewarding to do. But sometimes a simple story about the celibate religious sect, the Shakers, that I made in the early 80s can be as satisfying.
By the time you're done, somebody's going to have to make a documentary in Ken Burns style about Ken Burns. So that you're going to have to look back and go, oh, this is what happened here.
It's so funny. The first time I finished a film, I made a film called Brooklyn Bridge, about the Brooklyn Bridge building of it, and then its life as a symbol. And I had a premiere, so to speak, at the Brooklyn Museum. And when it was over, they said, will you go up and talk? I said, I just spent 5 years working on this film. Why would I want to talk? So then, you know, so I went up and I did the first of Q&As that I've ever done. I suddenly realized, oh, I see, I'm going to have to end up on the other side of the camera. I would much prefer to be behind it and trying to tell a good story than be someone who's evangelizing about that.
Amazing. Well, Ken Burns, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
If
you're here at the Telluride Film Festival, you can see a sneak preview of the new...
one episode of the Vietnam series. It's 10 episodes, 18 hours.
There you go.
It's going to begin broadcast on PBS on September 17th.
Nice.
But everybody's excited enough to show an episode here.
And we have a little preview here that we're going to go to right now. Ken Burns, thanks a lot for your life, your work, and for being a local here.
Yeah,
we like it.
I like it too. Thank you.
Let's go.
I thought I knew most of what was worth knowing about the war, and suddenly I didn't.
Something was happening that was profound, that was irreversible.
What was it all about? Was it worth it?
Smart people in pinstripes couldn't make their minds up about the war.
It was extremely traumatic, like the ground was suddenly cut from under you.
We just tried to believe that this was the right thing to do.
Wow, that looks like another powerful piece from Ken Burns, and that's premiering on PBS on September 17th. Telluride TV has its own historical archive of 30 years of everything from community events like July 4th parades, lip syncs, tap fashion shows, interviews, and if you have your own retro ride videos, send them to us at tim@telluridetv.org or tag us at Telluride TV. But right now, we're going to check out a clip from 2015 Kodo Lip Sync of some of Telluride's most talented ladies. Well, that was a pretty great clip. Some of my best buds, super talented.
That's right, and a new best bud that's now in
And a
the
new
world.
best bud, the baby in the belly.
Sila.
Best bud. Yeah.
That was a pretty amazing outfit.
That was
Melissa
pretty
made
cool.
that herself.
Wow, she did. Well, Almost Live is almost over.
And if you missed any of the show, never fear. We're going to run it through the weekend mornings and midday on Telluride's Channel 12. And if you want to see it at any time, you can go on Telluride TV's YouTube channel. You can get on there and subscribe. We'll be back with a brand new Almost Live next Friday. Until next time, I'm Colin Sullivan.
And I'm Megan Honey, and thanks for tuning in.
So, anyway, now we're chit-chatting. Yeah. Oh, she does. We'll also like think about Yeah, I know. That's an amazing like.